I'm Gold Derby editor Daniel Montgomery here with Lauren Beckett Jackson, Emmy nominee for Outstanding Picture Editing for Variety Programming for her work on The Daily Show. First off, what did it mean to you to get that recognition from your peers in the TV industry? Because this is such a peer group award.
Well, thanks first off, Daniel, for having me and helping me represent the show today. But yeah, getting this nomination is huge. It's my first one ever. So for me, it was like screaming and craziness happening when I first found out. But it's also just reminiscent of the fact that I'm part of a much larger team that's just very talented and has gotten this well-deserved 7 nominations, which is the most the show's ever had. And I think it's a testament to just how far we've come over the last few years. So it's exciting and we're super proud.
And what is that collaborative process like among the editing team? Do individual editors work on particular segments, or is everything kind of a group effort?
It's definitely a group effort. I mean, I think that we've made much more of an effort really to be able to do a lot of the forms of editing that we do on the show, so that no matter who's in the office, we all have a part to play and we can all help each other out. So when I first started, I was mainly doing a lot of the field pieces, but that's evolved now and I'm doing headlines, I'm doing some sketches, I'm doing a bunch of other things. And that's true of all the editors here. We all just kind of band together and put some of these pieces on that are really, really great, but it's spanning a huge amount of work. And so, yeah, it's definitely a collective effort.
And you joined the show in 2020. Was that before or after the pandemic lockdown show started?
It was after, actually. I started in August of 2020. So they had already started working remotely. And I was kind of like thrown into it because I just wasn't sure how this was going to work. But all the editors had already figured out a really like solid work plan and workflow. And so it was mainly just helping me get adjusted to how they were going to do things. And they really put it together and were a well-oiled machine by the time that I started. So it was much more of a seamless transition than I anticipated. And yeah, we were able to get the show on every night, doing it from everyone's homes, which was the first for me and really a marvel to watch and to witness and be part of.
And what is it like, to work from home as an editor? How different is that from your usual experience?
I would say very. I was not used to working from home, and you always get worried about internet connection and speed. We had to upgrade everyone's internet to be able to match the speed to get the show out. But then you're also dealing with other people that are at home. I have a puppy who does not understand why I'm staring at my screen all day. And trying to get him settled and figured out, but also just finding ways to communicate with everybody over Slack or over some other forms of communication, and like getting those Zoom calls in and meetings to try to like be as if we were in the room together to collaborate on things was a bit of a challenge, but we made it work. And so I think it opened a lot of our eyes to what's possible to do in remote situations, and that definitely had an impact on the show and what that kind of became as an at-home social distancing show. So it was an interesting challenge and one I think that we pulled off.
And how much has it changed for you since the show has transitioned back into the studio? Are you still at home? Is there a hybrid thing, or what kind of work are you doing now?
Yes, we're doing a hybrid schedule. I think we all kind of want to give ourselves a chance to enjoy that work from home time too, now that we've kind of figured out how that works and we're a well-oiled machine in that way. So we've spent a lot of time training each other. We used to have just a few editors that did the final delivery. Now most of us know how to do that, so that if people want to be home and can be home, we can make that work with each other. And the transition, I think the hardest part for me was the commute again, because I'm, not in Manhattan, I'm in Brooklyn. And so that was my scary part, but I've gotten used to the commute, and that was the biggest challenge for me. And I think now that we've figured out this hybrid schedule, it does still work for us. And so that's exciting too, that we all kind of get a little bit more quality of life time too, but can get the show on and make a great show every night.
And from just the perspective of the show itself, is it different? Editing the show, in the studio format as opposed to the at-home format?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely evolved in certain ways. I think the editors pulled a lot of weight in the remote setup that we used to have, especially with graphics, how we animate things on and off during headlines. A lot of that used to be our graphics team, and they would handle that in the studio. And then when we were remote, that was suddenly the editor's job as well, on top of some of the other things that we're doing. So it was a matter of kind of prioritizing your time, and time management was huge because we still had to get things out. And so I think going back to the office, it's almost a relief that we're back at full capacity now with everybody. And we're all kind of pulling our way together, and we can tell, how great the show is when we have the studio team helping out as well. So I think, it scratched a different itch when we were in remote. We had to pay much more attention to our time and detail for the kind of polishing and finishing the show. And now that we're back in the studio, we can appreciate all those studio and graphics people helping out to get the show done. So it's nice. It's great. It's great to have done both. But I think everyone can probably agree that we enjoy being back in the studio with the full audience, which has made a difference, I think.
Sorry, since you're turning around the show every day, almost, how fast paced is the process compared to other editing work you've done?
It's fast. I don't know if you've heard the term hurry up and wait, but that's kind of the way it can be, especially if you're working on headlines. There's quite a lot of news coverage that we have to get through, put together. We're going back and forth with the writers to see what might work, what jokes might be accessible, and ones maybe that will throw away. And then also just getting everything shot. And then we have a very quick turnaround from once everything is shot until when we have to deliver. It's about an hour and change to kind of cut the interview and to cut all the headlines down, and to make sure everything is to code and QC. So it's a very, very quick process, but I think at the same time, because we're a collaborative effort and we have a lot of people on staff that are helping to get each piece done, it's rare that we kind of hit snags or anything because we have like everything ready to go. So it's really a well-oiled machine, and we've been able to kind of pull all of these pieces together, and it's kind of amazing to kind of watch everyone work because everyone's just very quick. But it works. It's just part of the process, and we get it done. We know that that's part of our job. We're the Daily Show. We have to put something on every day, and we try to be as aware of what's manageable and possible to do in that time, but also finding ways to make the show fun, witty, and entertaining for everyone.
And how much news footage do you have to go through to, especially with something like headlines where you're covering a lot of topics in a relatively condensed period of time? Is that a lot of that happening in the editing room, or are the writers bringing a lot of those? Do you know what clips are going to come in?
So yeah, it's a collaborative effort. The writers and the directors, studio producers, etc., will all kind of tag team going through a lot of the news. So when it gets to me, it's much more condensed, which I'm appreciative of because we've got a lot of to get through. We also just want to make sure that we're saying what we need to say very succinctly. And so they do a great job of whittling stuff down for us and getting to the kind of the meat and potatoes. And then we're able to string it out, get it ready for rehearsal, and then the show after that. So it is a bunch of people coming together and making it work and getting those scripts done early so that we have time to make revisions, et cetera, before we start shooting. Yeah.
And how about those field pieces? Is that a lot of footage to condense into the final product?
Yes, for sure. I'd say one of the pieces that I worked on was a Thank Me Later piece, and I felt like it felt like a short film, which was awesome for me as an editor because we had so much footage to work with, several different scenes that we were cutting, and it was a lot of footage. So it was much more time prepping the footage that I'm, used to on the show. And we always have somewhat of a quick turnaround. So you want to be ready in case it's time for your piece to air. So getting all of that footage down and kind of seeing what's really important, what do we really need, and then what can we kind of use that's beautiful to put up because we shot it really well. But it's one of those things where you just have to keep it moving, go one step at a time, try not to get overwhelmed with the amount of footage that you have, work with your director to kind of find the best way forward, and take it from there. But it's fun because every day is different. I mean, these pieces, even if there are a lot of footage, are so much fun to cut. So that makes up for it.
And one thing that since the pandemic, I feel like the show has really discovered is having Trevor do these asides or cutaways to or graphics to really to hit home the a joke or an impression. What's it like hitting that comic timing to with the editing, because that looks like it must be harder than it looks.
Well, Trevor makes it easy, to be fair, because I think in a lot of ways, he already is so familiar with how, we're doing this iteration of the show. And so he can kind of lean into that. And we do a lot of prep with studio in rehearsal to make sure that those jokes kind of land and work. And so once we have it on the editing floor, to add, punching in, or if we're doing something with graphics, it's almost more of like celebratory feeling because you're like, we nailed it, we got it right. And so that's really a testament to the planning and how we get that joke written, how that might be shot with the directing team, and then how it ends up, getting to us in editing. It's almost it makes it easier because he's leaned into so much of what what we know is funny, what we know he can pull off, and so it's hard to answer that question, I think, because it's rewarding once you get to the point that I'm at to see it and to see that it's working and to kind of give each other a high five and a pat on the back that we pulled it off.
The show is specifically nominated for the Jordan Klepper Wellness Anti-Vaxxer segment and the Fringe Watch about Lauren Boebert. Do you remember working on those episodes? What about them kind of stood out to you as special?
So I know that our beloved editor Einar had worked on the Jordan Klepper special, and so I believe I worked on headlines that day. So it would have been just getting the news together. And I think it's funny because once you've gone through a whole season's worth of work, it starts to all meld together. But it's hard to, I think, determine when you've gone through this much body of work to kind of point out one specific instance, because the days go by so quickly. So I wish I could give you like a more poignant answer on that. But I think that because we're constantly working and constantly building, we're rotating through the show so much. There's a lot of moving parts that I think we're really proud to kind of see what each other has done well after it's already been cut and aired. But yeah, I mean, it's a collective effort for that reason. It's collaborative, and I think everyone really shines in a lot of the pieces that we've done, including the Jordan Klepper special.
You've worked on a number of reality shows before The Daily Show. And of course, there's the speed that goes into The Daily Show, the amount of work you have to put in and put out a show every day. Are there any other major differences in terms of the process or the creativity that goes into this versus your past work?
Oh, for sure. I'd say mainly we get a lot more options on The Daily Show. I mean, there's a lot of forethought that goes into the pieces that we put on, the jokes that we're writing, etc. And in reality, unfortunately, there's really never that much planning that goes on. And so you end up doing a lot of damage control in reality TV. You're kind of fixing maybe mistakes or things that we didn't foresee in production, and trying to kind of make something that didn't really have a story suddenly have a story. So there's a lot of back and forth on the reality side that I don't thankfully have to worry about on The Daily Show, because we have all of that prep built in and we already know what we're doing. So I think that that's the biggest difference. And then also just working with a team, I think, for this long as well. I mean, reality, we do projects and they're maybe 3-4 months and then you say sayonara and you move on to something else. And so this job has given me the opportunity to really get to know and to grow from a lot of the other editors that I'm working with, the producers that I'm working with, learning something new every day because we're doing stuff. I mean, we're not just doing sketches, we're not just doing biodocs, we're not just doing interviews, we're doing all of it on a daily basis. So it affords you the chance to try stuff that you've never tried before. You know, I'm gonna cut a fake commercial today. I've never done that. And so those are kind of the benefits of working here, and what really sets it apart, and what makes my coworkers or past coworkers jealous that I work here.
And how did you get into editing as a career originally? Like, what drew you to it?
Well, I fell into it. I started in production initially. I was a production coordinator for a long time in reality TV, and just found coming from, I was a theater major in college, so I had a creative background, but wasn't really doing that in my career. And I felt like there was something missing there. And I started to notice other women at the company that I worked at that were editors, and just really got fascinated with what they did, and decided to kind of switch gears. And I went to a night school to learn Avid, and I shadowed editors and stuff, and moved into post, and have loved it. I think it's a rare experience when you kind of find what you love. And so I was really, really just happy that I was able to find something that I enjoy doing and like look forward to every day. And yeah, I think also just working with a bunch of editors here, that we've all come from very different backgrounds, but have managed to come together on this show. I feel very much like I'm in the right place, which is nice. Yeah.
I want to congratulate you on your Emmy nomination, and on your continuing work on The Daily Show. It's been a pleasure talking with you about it.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for having me.